In the annals of medical history, few chapters are as dark and disturbing as the Tuskegee Syphilis Study. From 1932 to 1972, the United States Public Health Service, in collaboration with the Tuskegee Institute, conducted a study on untreated syphilis in black men. This study was a cruel betrayal of trust and a blatant disregard for human life. The study's subjects, 600 impoverished black sharecroppers from Macon County, Alabama, were lured into participation under false pretenses. Promised free medical care, these men were told they were being treated for bad blood, a catch-all term for various ailments. In reality, they were denied treatment for syphilis, even after penicillin became the standard cure in 1947. Instead, they were subjected to painful and unnecessary procedures like spinal taps, all in the name of observing the natural progression of the disease. The Tuskegee Syphilis Study serves as a chilling reminder of the profound harm that can occur when scientific curiosity is entangled with racial bias. To fully grasp the horrors of the Tuskegee Syphilis Study, we must delve into its origins. The study was conceived during a time when the American South was still firmly in the grip of Jim Crow segregation. Black Americans were relegated to second-class citizenship, denied basic rights, and subjected to relentless discrimination. In this climate of racial hierarchy, the medical field was not immune to prejudice. The study's architects, driven by a toxic blend of scientific curiosity and racial bias, sought to understand the supposed differences between black and white bodies when it came to syphilis. This misguided belief, rooted in the pseudoscience of eugenics, held that black people were more susceptible to sexually transmitted infections and less intelligent than their white counterparts. The researchers, blinded by their own prejudice, failed to acknowledge the social and economic factors contributing to the higher rates of syphilis in the black community. The Tuskegee Syphilis Study did not emerge in a vacuum. It was the product of a society steeped in racial prejudice, where black lives were deemed disposable in the relentless pursuit of scientific progress. The men who became unwitting participants in the Tuskegee Syphilis Study were enticed with the promise of free medical care. However, this offer of treatment was a cruel deception, a poisoned gift designed to lure them into a web of medical manipulation. The researchers, hiding behind the veneer of scientific inquiry, deliberately withheld information about the true nature of their condition. These men, many of whom had never seen a doctor before, placed their trust in these medical professionals, unaware that they were being used as mere pawns in a twisted experiment. Even when penicillin became the standard treatment for syphilis in 1947, the researchers went to great lengths to prevent the study participants from receiving this life-saving medication. The Tuskegee Syphilis Study stands as a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked medical power, particularly when wielded against vulnerable populations already marginalized by society. The Tuskegee Syphilis Study was not a random sampling of the population, it was a deliberate and calculated targeting of black men. The study's architects chose Macon County, Alabama for their experiment due to its high poverty rate and predominantly black population. These men, already burdened by the oppressive weight of Jim Crow, were seen as easy targets, unlikely to question the motives of the white medical establishment. The researchers exploited the existing power dynamics, leveraging their positions of authority to coerce participation. The men were offered incentives to enroll in the study, including free meals, burial insurance, and transportation to and from the clinic. The Tuskegee Syphilis Study wasn't just an assault on individual black men. It was an attack on the very fabric of a community, tearing at the bonds of trust and leaving a legacy of pain that continues to resonate today. The Tuskegee Syphilis Study was not simply a case of medical misconduct. It was a prolonged and systematic campaign of medical neglect. For 40 years, the men enrolled in the study were denied access to treatment, even as penicillin became widely available and highly effective in treating syphilis. The researchers, more concerned with preserving the integrity of their experiment than alleviating the suffering of their subjects, stood by as the disease ravaged their bodies and minds. The men endured painful symptoms including blindness, heart failure, mental deterioration, and ultimately death. The medical community's silence on the Tuskegee study is perhaps the most damning aspect of this entire ordeal. The Tuskegee Syphilis Study serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of apathy and the urgent need for moral courage within the medical profession, particularly when confronted with systemic racism and prejudice. The ramifications of the Tuskegee Syphilis Study extend far beyond the 600 men directly impacted by this horrific experiment. The study's legacy continues to cast a long shadow over the relationship between the black community and the medical establishment. The deep-seated mistrust sowed by the study's revelation in 1972 has had a profound and lasting impact on black Americans' willingness to seek medical care, participate in clinical trials, and trust the pronouncements of medical professionals. Many black Americans harbor deep-seated anxieties about seeking medical treatment, fearing they may be subjected to experimentation, exploitation, or outright neglect. The study's exposure also had significant implications for medical research ethics. While these measures represent important steps towards preventing future atrocities, the legacy of Tuskegee serves as a constant reminder of the vigilance required to safeguard against ethical lapses in the pursuit of scientific knowledge. The Tuskegee Syphilis Study remained hidden from public view for 4 long decades. It was not until 1972 when Peter Buxton, a former USPHS venereal disease investigator, leaked information about the study to the Washington Star that the full extent of the study's horrors was revealed to the world. The public outcry was immediate and fierce. The revelation of the Tuskegee study sparked a national conversation about race, science, and medical ethics. The study's exposure shattered the illusion of objectivity in scientific research, revealing how easily personal biases and societal prejudices can warp scientific inquiry. The study's legacy continues to demand our attention, urging us to remain vigilant against all forms of injustice and to fight for a future where medical research is driven by ethical principles, not racial prejudice. The exposure of the Tuskegee Syphilis Study sparked a wave of activism and legal action. Survivors of the study, along with their families, filed lawsuits against the US government, demanding accountability for the egregious harm they had endured. In 1974, a $10 million out-of-court settlement was reached, and the US government promised to provide free healthcare to all living study participants and their families. While this settlement provided some measure of financial compensation, it could never truly atone for the physical and emotional trauma inflicted upon the men and their loved ones. In 1997, President Bill Clinton formally apologized for the Tuskegee Syphilis Study, acknowledging the government's role in perpetrating this horrific injustice. The fight for justice continues, with advocates calling for reparations, systemic change within the healthcare system, and a renewed commitment to addressing the health disparities that disproportionately impact black communities. The Tuskegee Syphilis Study may be a relic of the past, but its echoes continue to reverberate in the present day. Medical racism, far from being relegated to the history books, persists in various forms, manifesting in health disparities, implicit bias in medical treatment, and the underrepresentation of black Americans in medical professions. Despite advances in medical technology and increased awareness of racial bias, black Americans continue to experience poorer health outcomes compared to their white counterparts. These disparities are not due to biological differences, but are rooted in systemic racism, which manifests in social determinants of health, such as poverty, lack of access to quality healthcare, and exposure to environmental hazards. The Tuskegee Syphilis Study serves as a stark reminder that medical racism is not a relic of the past, but an ongoing crisis demanding our attention and action. Only by acknowledging and addressing these systemic issues can we move towards a future where healthcare is truly equitable and accessible to all. The Tuskegee Syphilis Study stands as a chilling reminder of the fragility of human rights and the ever-present potential for scientific inquiry to be corrupted by prejudice and greed. We must remain vigilant in safeguarding against ethical breaches in medical research and ensure that the lessons learned from Tuskegee are never forgotten. This requires ongoing education and training for medical professionals, robust informed consent procedures, and independent oversight of research involving human subjects. Moreover, we must actively address the systemic racism and implicit bias that continue to plague the healthcare system, leading to health disparities and inequitable access to care. We must strive to create a healthcare system that values diversity, equity and inclusion, one that prioritizes the well-being of all individuals, regardless of race, ethnicity or socio-economic status. Let us move forward with a renewed commitment to ethical research, compassionate care, and the pursuit of health equity for all.